What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence Bud Crawford, has been real reluctant to agree to face undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer Errol Spence Jr. and accept his offer of 60-40 split to make and stage the massive mega showdown in the unification bout. And Terence Crawford recently and his team have come out and stated that they are feeling highly disrespected by Errol Spence Jr. making them a 60-40 offer, when they feel like they are the clear-cut A side. And if there's going to be any 60-40 offers, it's going to be in favor of Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's team is stating that Errol Spence doesn't want the fight because he would just accept the 50-50 split and make the fight happen. But in the same token, another massive fight that could have come to fruition, and it possibly still is, that is two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Shawn Porter is an option for Terence Crawford, who Terence Crawford stated that they have a close friendship with. But Terence Crawford allows his promoter, top-ranked CEO, legendary promoter Bob Arum, make a lowball offer to Showtime Shawn Porter, saying that he has to take a flat fee of $1 million, or he'll allow it to go to purse bid with his advisor, PBC, Premier Boxing Champion founder and advisor Al Heyman, and let Al Heyman fit the bill. So essentially, Terence Crawford is okay with Shawn Porter being lowballed. But when it comes to a split for a massive showdown with Errol Spence, who clearly is the biggest star because the numbers don't lie, he feels it's highly disrespectful to make an offer of 60-40 split. Now, my thing is this. Terence Crawford and his team are saying that Errol Spence needs to accept the fight because it's not about the money. Well, that's a contradiction. Because if it's not about the money, then Terence Crawford should gladly accept 60-40 split. Because 60-40 split for a fight of this magnitude, 40%, is a huge chunk and a huge payday for Terence Crawford. Obviously, 50-50 is more money for Terence Crawford, but he said, and his team said, it's not about the money. If it's about the money for Errol Spence, and it's not about the money for Terence Crawford, then it really shouldn't matter to Team Crawford or Terence Crawford how much money they get, because essentially it's not about the money. And let Errol Spence be about the money, make the fight, make your statement, make your point by beating him. And then in a rematch, obviously there will be a rematch clause. You reverse the roles and 60-40 in your favor. See, here's what's being missed. And I'm going to go as more recent, in recent times. Recently, we had a similar situation before two-time undefeated heavyweight British superstar boxer Tyson Fury came back on the scene, and Deontay Wilder, former Olympic bronze medalist, former WBC reigning heavyweight champion who successfully defended his titles 10 times before losing it to Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder, the Bronze Bomber, was the head of the heavyweight division in the sport of boxing with Tyson Fury's fellow countryman at the time, undefeated, unified British heavyweight world champion superstar boxer Anthony Joshua. This is eerie similar to Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, is very similar to, in comparisons to Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Because, see, Terence Crawford is basing his stance off of his history. Him being undisputed at junior welterweight, him being a champion at 135, him being a champion now at 147. right? That's what he's banking on, basing this on, and his skill set in the ring. Nobody could take away the fact that he's highly skilled inside the ring. But what everybody's talking about is your growth, your grossing power, your worth outside of the ring, your star power outside of the ring. And so why do I bring up Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua? It's very important. Because Deontay Wilder was a champion before Anthony Joshua. Deontay Wilder was the most exciting, or is the most exciting man in the sport of boxing. Deontay Wilder, leading up to this talk of Anthony Joshua, had knocked out everybody he's faced. He was undefeated. Anthony Joshua, yes, he became unified, but his resume and the opportunities went his way opposed to Deontay Wilder's way. You had Joseph Parker chose to go the route of fighting Anthony Joshua opposed to fighting Deontay Wilder in unification bout. You had Charles Martin choose to go the route of Anthony Joshua instead of Deontay Wilder, because those were fights that were on the table for Deontay Wilder as well. So Anthony Joshua got the opportunity, and you can't take that away from him. With that said, Deontay Wilder was more accomplished at that point in time, right? He was the longer champion, so on and such. It's eerie similar. And Errol Spence Jr. is unified at welterweight. And Terence Crawford and his team are stating, well, Errol Spence is unified and a bigger star, viewed as the biggest star because he has more opportunity. Well, it's very similar to Anthony Joshua. He was viewed as the biggest star than Deontay Wilder because he had more opportunity. So going into negotiations, now we obviously know the fight didn't come to fruition because Eddie Hearn, Matchroom CEO and promoter Anthony Joshua, and Anthony Joshua truly didn't want the fight. But when it boils down to this, is that Deontay Wilder decided, I'm going to make the fight happen with Anthony Joshua. I'm fine by that. So there was one sticking point that held this up. Is Deontay Wilder decided, I'll take a flat fee of $12 million and give everything else to Anthony Joshua, as long as when I'm victorious, I get it the same treatment in reverse. So when I beat Anthony Joshua, he has to give me the bigger share of the pie once I beat him in a rematch. Then that fell through. Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua went back to the negotiation table. Deontay Wilder once again decided, I'm going to take the less amount of money. I'm going to take $15 million flat fee. But I still need my rematch clause, in which Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua were unwilling to give Deontay Wilder a rematch clause. That's why the fight fell through. But Deontay Wilder, point is, Deontay Wilder was willing to take the less amount of money, a flat fee, in a huge, massive pay-per-view event that would have grossed more money than Terence Crawford Errol Spence fight. Because as the heavyweight division goes, so goes the sport of boxing. So Deontay Wilder and Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua would have grossed more money, far more money than Terence Crawford and Errol Spence can. Because the heavyweight division rules the sport of boxing. And so Deontay Wilder understood what he could make, but he understood what he could be should he beat Anthony Joshua and become undisputed. And he understood what the future held. So Deontay Wilder said, I'll take the flat fee of $12 million. I'll take the flat fee of $15 million. I just need in return the same treatment in reverse after I beat Anthony Joshua. And that was the sticking point because Eddie Hearn was unwilling to give Deontay Wilder a rematch clause with these stipulations. That's the most recent, because we know we have the situation with Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was already a 4-division world champion. He was already a pay-per-view star. He was already considered a pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. He and Roy Jones Jr. By the time he fought Oscar De La Hoya, and Floyd Mayweather turned over all the reins to Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya got a 70-30 split in favor of Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya chose the ring size, the location, the date, and even the glove size that he even chose the gloves that Floyd Mayweather had to wear in the fight with Oscar De La Hoya, in which Floyd Mayweather said he gave me pillows for gloves to slow me down, and he made the ring smaller so I didn't have enough space to utilize the ring. But Floyd Mayweather agreed to this because Floyd Mayweather said, once I defeat Oscar De La Hoya, I am going to be the A-side. I am now going to be the cash cow. But Floyd Mayweather understood that Oscar De La Hoya's star power, his crossover power, was still bigger. His light was still brighter than Floyd Mayweather's. So Floyd Mayweather understood he needed to dethrone Oscar De La Hoya and dim his light and brighten his own light to become the cash cow. And this is the point that Terence Crawford and Team Crawford are missing, is that the numbers don't lie. The proof is in the pudding. Pay-per-view wise, combined 2 pay-per-views that Terence Crawford has done with Victor Postol and Amir Khan has a combined number of 210,000 pay-per-view buys. One of Errol Spence, his lowest fight, according to reports, with Danny Garcia was 310,000 pay-per-view buys. That's still 100,000 pay-per-view buys more than Terence Crawford's combined 2 pay-per-view buys with just one of Errol Spence's. That's not to include the fact that he did 350,000 pay-per-view buys with Mikey Garcia fight and 325,000 pay-per-view buys with Sean Porter. So it's not even close who's doing the bigger numbers. And regardless of who has the better opportunities, the fact remains, you can say, well, Errol Spence is doing bigger numbers because he has more opportunities, as Andre Ward stated, because Team Crawford stated that, well, Andre Ward is a historian. He's a boxing knowledge. You should listen to Andre Ward. This is what Coach Red of Terence Crawford's team stated. Andre Ward makes great points. Okay, Andre Ward, if that's the case, we're going to listen to Andre Ward, as we should, because he is definitely a boxing brain. He stated that Errol Spence holds the ace card. Errol Spence has the ace side. So if we're going to listen to Andre Ward, then we got to listen to Andre Ward for everything. And he says he holds the ace card. And the last time I checked, if you hold the ace card, you call all the shots at that point in time. And so he stated that he holds the ace card, meaning that he has the better options on his side, the Premier Big Boxing Champion side, than Terence Crawford does on Top Rank side. And Terence Crawford decided in 2018 to re-sign with Top Rank and Bob Arum. So that's not to anybody's fault but Terence Crawford that he don't have the options available to him. You can't sign on this side of the street and then say, well, these guys are supposed to come over here and fight me now. When you knew what was in place and the possibilities that it could be a struggle to make these 2 different worlds come together. So you chose to stay put. That's no fault to Errol Spence or anybody else on the PBC side. That's only to your fault. And so with that said, if we're going to listen to Andre Ward said Errol Spence holds the ace card, which means he calls the shots. And the numbers don't lie. Yes, he does have the options. But whose fault is that he has the options that Terence Crawford doesn't have? And so this excuse gets used that, well, even if Terence Crawford would have signed to the PBC, there's no guarantee he would have haven't gotten those fights. That is completely false. Okay, because Manny Pacquiao signed with the PBC and he still got big fights. If you don't get the biggest fight, you're still going to get big fights. So let's say he didn't land the Errol Spence fight as of yet. He still would have landed a Keith Thurman fight. He still would have landed either a Sean Porter fight. He still would have landed Danny Garcia fight. One of these options would have been available for him other than Igis Kavalauskas, who's nobody knows of, other than Jose Benavidez, who has now since retired and hadn't had a big fight prior to Terence Crawford fight, outside of Amir Khan, who was far past his prime, and outside of Kell Brook, who was far past his prime. He would have been able to land a bigger fight, a bigger name fight. He chose this path, so he chose the bed. He made the bed, and now he has to lie in it. That's to nobody's fault but his own. So it's clear that Errol Spence is the A side. Because he has the options, we can't say, well, that's only because he has the option. There's no such thing as that's only because he has the. But when you had the opportunity to place yourself in the same position, to gauge if you didn't even put yourself in position to win. To know if you're going to be able to land. So this excuse that, well, we don't know if he would have been able to secure those fights because who wasn't able to secure them? See, this is a false narrative that gets created because because Manny Pacquiao didn't land a rematch with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was on his way out and was already semi-retired by the time Manny Pacquiao signed with the PBC. Okay, that's for one. For two, we're talking about one fight other than Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, which was Errol Spence not getting the Keith Thurman fight. But to Errol Spence's and everybody else's defense, Sean Porter has fought Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and Errol Spence. Danny Garcia has fought Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, and Errol Spence. Errol Spence has now fought Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Mikey Garcia. So they are still landing the big fights. Your legacy hinges on multiple fights, not one. The last time I checked, it had nothing to do with, well, Keith, Sugar Ray Leonard only fought Marvin Hagler, and that was his legacy. No, it was the fact that he fought Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran. That's what made it so special, because he fought multiple guys. He fought Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. Tommy Hearns fought Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Roberto Duran. Marvin Hagler fought Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, and Roberto Duran. That's what made it special, is that they fought multiple guys. Not that it hinged on one fight. Not that Terence Crawford's career hinges on just fighting Errol Spence. It hinges on him fighting Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia. But they're already mixing it up. He's the odd man out. And his team is doing him a disservice by continuously to push the narrative that if he signed with the PBC, there's no guarantee he would have got those fights. That is completely false, because they are mixing it up. And when Manny Pacquiao, a legend, an icon, was signed to his side, he couldn't land the fight over there. So why did he re-sign with Top Rank? He couldn't land the Manny Pacquiao fight when Manny Pacquiao was signed to Top Rank. So why are we using the argument that if he signed with the PBC, he wouldn't get the fights anyway? When he re-signed with Top Rank and couldn't get the fights on Top Rank. So why not give yourself a better chance, a better percentage to be able to land these fights, to secure work their way to the Errol Spence fight? So now he's saying that if Errol Spence don't stop disrespecting him and give him a 50-50 split, the fight will never happen. Once again, the person standing in Terence Crawford way is Terence Crawford and Team Crawford. That's all I got for y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.